Welcome to the Modern Midlife Podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Kobake. As a coach for midlife women, I help them identify and rewrite the self-limiting stories they've been telling themselves for years, stories that have held them back and kept them from thriving in life. You can find me at my coaching website, midliferewritten.com. Today, I have the opportunity to share with you my conversation with Sam Salenger. Sam is a fellow midlife coach in the Portland, Oregon area, and she helps her clients do midlife with Moxie. So let's get started on our conversation. She is a coach from the Portland area, and she's been gracious enough to speak with me today on the concepts of midlife and give us a little information about her own journey and share some information with me. So, Sam, you're in Portland, and so you are a coach in midlife. And so when you think about that, when you talk to your clients, what feelings come up for them when they think about themselves as midlife women?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not only a coach working with midlife women, but I'm also a woman in midlife who is a coach. So, so I think that what I would initially say is the feeling that comes up is, first of all, surprise when we realize we actually are in midlife. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the midlife journey is a little bit tricky because there is no start date. There's no year that you step into it, like your teenage years or 21 or whatever, or a nice round number like your decade years. So I think that's the first is sort of a denial, and then fear, really, about what does this mean for my body? What is my body going to do? You know, what does that mean for my relationships? You know, I'm moving into this time that feels really different. What is menopause going to mean? And that's a whole other piece of it. And I think that the people who come to see me are the women who hit a point at which midlife, they feel that they're at the effect of their life instead of being in charge of their life. And I think midlife is a time of awakening, and it's a time of reckoning that says, listen, it's time, now or never. Mm-hmm. And so that's the point at which women either, I think, really flatten themselves out and just say, okay, I'm just gonna white knuckle it and get through this. Mm-hmm. Or they say, nope, I can't do that anymore. So that's really what I experience and what I work with. I call myself an empowerment coach for women in midlife because it's the searching. My tagline is remember your power and reclaim your voice. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're all searching for as women as we hit midlife, and we start to realize, oh, we don't have people we have to put first anymore. I have to put myself first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that shift in priorities is a big issue, and I think it's probably the hardest thing for women in midlife to come to grips with because it's such a change.
Exactly. And I think that we've been taught and told and shown, and it's been assumed that we put ourselves last. So we put partners first, and then children and career and home and friends and aging parents and yada, yada, the list goes on. And at some point when our soul says, hey, excuse me, no more. Yeah. I need the mask first on the airplane. And then, so not only do we not know how to do that, we've literally never been shown how to do that, but we have all this guilt and shame we have to work through to get to the place where we accept that that's now our work.
Right. Yes, that's very true. All that guilt and shame that comes to us. And, you know, you think, well, where does that come from? Why do we do that to ourselves? Yeah. So you talked about being a woman in midlife yourself. And can you tell me a little bit about, you know, how midlife is going for you, how you know, where you are at this stage of the process?
Yeah. So, so I'm 48. I'll be 49 this year. And I have two children one's a 14-year-old and one's 12 who thinks he's a 14-year-old. So I like to say that I live in the eye of the hormonal hurricane because I've got two children in puberty and I'm in perimenopause. So sometimes it's a hormone hurricane in my house. There can be a lot of fiery screaming and yelling.
I know.
Yeah, lack of tolerance on everyone's part sometime. So that's kind of one piece of my midlife journey, is how to handle all these hormones. I'm divorced. I'm a single mom, and I've really, chosen to stay single because I at 40, how old was I? I guess about 43. That's when my divorce happened, and I was completely lost. I was lost for a long time before that. And then I got a little bit more found when I got out of a pretty unhappy marriage. And, a good man, just not a good marriage. And so midlife for me really started then. Well, it started in my late 30s, I think, when I realized, oh, golly, I'm going to be 40. And I felt like I had wasted my whole life. I woke up one day, it wasn't even when I was 40, and I thought, well, that's it. It's over. And so I did that for a little bit of time, and then realized that was pretty stupid, and I have really 40 more years to go, probably, hopefully.
Exactly.
And yeah, and really without having to raise children or anyway, so my midlife has really been a lot of coming to terms with what I want, where's my voice, setting boundaries, remembering who I am and reclaiming my voice. And I think that where I would say I am now is after 5 years of being divorced and a single mom, and maybe on this journey as a coach for 2.5 years, I would say, it's still a daily process. I don't think that it'll ever end, because I think that whatever goal I set for myself, I now realize I'm going to want something different or more bigger, more expansive as I get there. So, I'm both excited, and then sometimes I get a little bit sad about, I wish I had learned it earlier, and I wish that I had, not wasted so much time. But I think overall, I would say that it's a time of really contentment.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's finally gotten to the point for you where you feel like, okay, I think I've got a little bit of a handle on this thing. So
right. And then something new will come up that I get to work on. So
right. It's a never-ending process.
Never-ending process, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I would say that most of the time I spend pretty content. I think happy is a tricky word, but excited, content, and sometimes really resentful and resistant. And but my recovery time out of that is much faster. So I think that's why I can say I spend a lot more time in contentment.
When you think about the biggest hurdle that you had to get over, to get to this point today, what would you say that would be?
Trusting myself.
Yep.
Trusting the voice, not quieting it. I think we are amazing at gaslighting ourselves. It seems crazy that we would do that to ourselves.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
We have these, these stories and our voices in our heads, and I knew I was unhappy for so long, but I would sort of go,
can't go there.
Right. And so, I think that has been for sure been the biggest hurdle, is to trust my soul, not my brain, trust my body and soul and heart, because my brain is tricky.
Yeah, that's true. Your brain is full of all those things that society has told us all these years, full of the childhood experiences that you had that maybe didn't nurture you in the way they could have, all of those things. Yeah, it's learning to listen to your intuition, what I call your inner wise woman. That is so crucial, but so hard to do.
so hard to do. She has been silenced for eons.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we really fight. So that I would say is probably the biggest goal. And it's one I work on still every day.
Yeah.
And I practice it with the small things so that when the big things come around, and I say that like it sounds like I've got that handled. I totally haven't, but because there's always new things to practice with. But I know that, and especially for this year, that is really my goal for 2019 is to get even more in touch with that inner wise woman, the divine feminine that really does know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really does. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really quite amazing. I, I firmly believe that we really know all the answers in here, but we just don't listen to them. We don't believe them.
Yeah.
And we stack stuff on top of it and push it down and push it down and we do ourselves such a disservice.
Yeah.
So through all of this, what do you think you've learned about yourself and about who you are now?
Well, I think you just said it. I think we do know. And I think that what I've learned is that I'm so much more capable than I thought I was.
Yeah.
I'm much more tuned in to what is true than I ever knew. And the battle, I think, is really to understand and accept our own worthiness and enoughness.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow side and light side, all the sides. And so, and I don't think it's ever, like I said, that the needle is always going to move because as we accept one piece of it, something else bubbles up to be looked at. So that's the other piece is knowing I'm never done. The work will never be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also exciting because it's, when you can accept that, then when you hit a bit of a speed bump, it doesn't derail you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. To know that those kinds of things are normal, it's part of the process, and it doesn't mean that you're incapable or it just means that you're human and you're growing. I mean, it is a very exciting time. It's a very scary time because I think we're taught to value certainty.
Yes.
To know that there's an answer, there's a solution, you just have to figure it out. But in truth, there's nothing certain about life except, death in the end. Everything else,
right? Yeah.
everything else, it just all depends. And if you can be open to that joy of exploration, it can so change your life.
Yeah. And curiosity, I think that has made a huge difference in my life. Instead of being in judgment, being in curiosity has shifted a lot for me. And instead of thinking, oh, that was a failure, thinking, okay, it's just an experiment. That was, now what am I going to learn from that?
Exactly.
That's so much about, I think, age and middle age. And if you can use your age and experience to not judge, but to stay in that curious, creative place, it's just, it does lessen the fear a lot.
Yeah, it's true. So you talked about a village earlier before we started the recording. What type of support system have you been able to create for yourself, and how has that helped you?
It's a great question. Early on when I sort of started this big journey, I'm a huge fan of therapy. So I had a great therapist that I was working with well before middle age. And it was so wonderful to have her to kind of dip back into whenever I needed to, but she knew me for so long that she could really reflect back truth and not through the filter in my head.
Yeah.
So that was a huge support, having that consistent person in my life. And then since really kind of coming out of my shell, I guess, I have just made the most amazing female friendships. They have, and I have great friendships from before, but stepping out now, I find that I'm drawing to me women who are very similarly aligned. And that it doesn't take very long to get into a really deep connected space with them. And that is so hugely important, I think, at this time in our lives. When I started my business, I started a meetup group. I didn't know how to market, and I started a meetup group, and I thought, well, let's see if this resonates. And I started it thinking, oh, maybe I'll get 2 or 3 people or whatever. And overnight, I called it Reclaiming Middle Age, and overnight 80 people had signed up. And I'm now almost at 600 women. So what that told me right away was I am not alone at all.
Yep.
And there is a need that needs to be filled here, where women need to come together. And what women would say is, I have great friends, I have great family, but I have, at our meetups, they would say, I've never sat in a room full of women. And every time someone speaks, go, yep, and felt so completely heard and seen. And so what that told me also is we need to create our own communities and support systems. And we do need to surround ourselves with people who understand us.
Yeah.
And how vital that is, to feel that you aren't alone. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have found that to be true as well. I think, so many women suffer in silence.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's considered selfish to think about your needs as a woman, as a mother, as, it's all about serving the other person, providing for their needs, making sure they're nurtured and taken care of, which is wonderful. But when you do that and you leave yourself out of that process, then what happens, right? Yeah. And so, I think just being able to sit in a room of women who talk about what their needs are, and to be able to do that without feeling ashamed or like they're being selfish, makes all the difference in the world.
It does make all the difference. And so very quickly that group became less about marketing and really about a tribe. I mean, it really was about community, and it just felt so, it made my heart just swell to know that not only did I need this, but that so many women need to know that they're not alone in this. It is a journey.
Yeah.
And it can be hard. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you look forward, what kind of tips and suggestions do you have for our midlife sisters who are struggling with all of this at this point?
Yeah. So one of the things I left out of that last question was something happened a year ago in January where I made a commitment to network, and I went into a networking group. I had no idea it was up for women, and 2/3 of the women there were 60 and over. And I was really struggling with aging. I was really feeling like, my dad had just gone into the hospital for heart stuff and he's fine. But it just brought up a lot of fear about aging. And that, I've never had that experience since. It was just the right time, perfect, where I sat in a room of these incredible women who are, in the third, and just doing the coolest stuff, running their, entrepreneurs who are doing weird, wild, amazing, creative things. And I got so enthused by that I realized, I have to find my badass grannies and aunties, because we have to know that we are still vital and exciting and smart and wise. And not only that actually the more we live, the more we have to offer.
Yes.
So that's always one of the first things I ask people, women who are really struggling in life, is who are your role models? Who are you scheduling time with that make you excited about the future?
Right.
So that would be one thing, is to find some of your own badass aunties that can cheer you on, that can give you the real story, the truth about thing, and also to say, and you're going to be totally fine. And P.S., it's actually better, right? That's what I love to hear, is all these women in their 60s and 70s saying, oh, you think you're happy in your 40s, just wait. And that calms the fear a lot.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing, is to find some role models, find a community for sure. And my number one tip for anybody starting any kind of journey is to start in gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, to the depth of my being, believe that it is the gateway to growth. If you can practice gratitude on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
when you're something really painful and tragic and traumatic and hard, you have that muscle built, it changes everything. So, and I really believe that it's important to write it down, not just think it, because it gets lost in the craziness in our head. So either having a journal, I got through my divorce with a gratitude buddy. We texted each other every single night for a year.
Wow.
And I really think it made the difference for both of us. It got us through with a lot of grace and strength. So my best tip for sure.
Well, that sounds great. So tell me a little bit about your business at this point.
Yeah. So I am a coach, and I specialize in working with women in midlife. So I really go at it from the lens of empowerment and mindset. I also have some intuitive gifts that are coming online kind of fast and furious as I get older and open myself up. So that's pretty fun. And I see women one-on-one it's very similar to therapy. As you know, coaching's slightly different, but it's similar. A lot of talking and asking questions and holding women accountable and reframing. And I also run seasonal vision board workshops. And
I saw that.
yeah, so, and I do a deep dive. I think the vision board part is super fun and can be really helpful, but until you know why you're putting a picture of something on a board, it's kind of meaningless. So we do a 3-hour deep dive with a process that I've developed for that. And then I run small groups, because I know coaching can be kind of a luxury and expensive one-on-one. So I like to offer, and also just create a tribe for people, small group. So I do a little bit of a lot of things. Blog and the meetups, and it's really great. It's such a blessing. I sometimes just go, I can't believe that I get to do this work. It's so meaningful and so important, and I feel really lucky to be able to offer it to other women.
Yes, well, they're lucky to be able to have someone like you, help them work through this journey. So I want to thank you for the time that you spent with me. I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. As a thank you for being here, I'd like to offer you my glorious second act workbook and planner. It's a great tool to help you gain clarity on what it is you want next in your life and to create a plan to get you there. It's a totally free gift. The link is down below, so click the link, download your planner, and get started, taking action and creating a new and exciting second half to your life. I'm Joanne Kobike, your midlife coach. Stop by again for another episode of Modern Midlife. See you next time.